There's a few copies of the agenda.
We want to speak. We have to sign it. I'm sure.
I can make more. Pretty good. Thank you. Oh, it's Christina.
Melinda.
I'm Mark Browning.
Anybody else, Mom?
Yep.
No. I think she said I know.
Well, I thought she said hi. Wait.
I wish I had $1. Mine is 19. I wish she would just get right into Ariel's age. Just go from 19 to like Ariel's age, like 25.
You want that as long as they have a job, let me tell you.
Ariel, how are you? Good.
So where are you guys?
The last two signing talk tonight, are you here to start it here?
I think when they might open the trail, it's all done, it just has a little gate there. It's been asked before.
We're trying to get it.
I saw they're working on like a barbecue.
Can I leave these with you? People come in and want one. Thank you.
So every day. Yeah, we have like a new view, you know, of the water, direction, there's a little over
public comment on that proposal's way down on the agenda. See if there's a lot of stuff. Yeah, it's like page 3.
You think that's a strategy?
I don't know. Christian maybe. They have been known to move things of interest up, change the order around a little bit when people are interested in silly loopholes and people stay through all that
Still a lot of assumptions.
Oh, you didn't get a chance to look into that nightly rentals and commercial zoning at all?
I've only been here 36 years, so before and after my house got flooded.
What do you have for an email out there?
Alright, we're going to go ahead and get started.
You build it? You build it?
Over by the town.
Not intentionally.
I'm not even in town, but I'm in my old South Road.
We're going to go ahead and call to order the regular meeting of the Lions Board of Trustees for Monday, February 5th, 2018. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Sullivan?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Greenberg?
Present.
Trustee Caravas?
Present.
Trustee Watt? Trustee Kerr?
Present.
Trustee Drystaff?
Present.
And Trustee Miller? Present.
All right, thank you. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag
stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll now take a brief reflective moment of silence, please. Thank you. Just a note before we get started that the meetings are being live streamed and video recorded, and the microphone is in the back corner of the room. So just so you know, it picks up the audience discussion just as much as it picks up us. So just keep that in mind if you don't mind, because it can be distracting for those who are watching from home. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I move that we approve tonight's agenda.
Can I ask for an amendment?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I apologize. I move that we add executive session to become item number 12, and to be after items removed from consent agenda. Oh, no.
This
right
is
there,
if you
item
want to
14.
talk.
Okay. I'm confirming that we are going to have an executive session. Any further discussion? Call for the vote. Passes by 6 to 0. Thank you. All right. Have we heard from the sheriff? Will we have the sheriff? All right, we'll go ahead and move on to staff reports, please.
We have two reports we want to give tonight. One is a flood recovery update. Richard Markovich is here to present that tonight. And then an update from the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment regarding a recent survey and inspection they did over the summer. So Richard? Oh, we need to.
I'll just say for the record that Trustee Waugh has joined me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor, Sullivan, and the board. My name is Richard Mark.
We're having trouble hearing you.
Can't hear.
Just have to pull it closer to you, Richard.
Thank you, Mayor Sullivan, and the board. Can you hear me?
No.
I can hardly hear you.
Hello? Can you hear me? Yeah, now that works.
Just going to have to get really close.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Sullivan and the board. My name is Richard Markovich. I'm the flood recovery manager.
You have to speak up, please.
And I'm here to do the flood recovery update. A few of the projects I wanted to report on was the Public Works Building site development. And we have hired, we're in the process of hiring a civil engineer consultant for that project to help us to develop the site under FEMA funding. The McConnell Bridge Drive is, or McConnell Drive Bridge, excuse me, is well under construction. It's looking great. The girders are going to be delivered and installed on February 8th and 9th. So that's a significant event.
Can't hear you.
Still can't hear?
Just speak louder. Kim?
Another project I wanted to report on was the Bond Park Phase 2. And we have hired Walsh Construction to construct that project, and they are mobilizing on site. On the Lions Valley River Park, we had a significant development in the nationwide 404 permit was approved by the Department of Environment. That's great news. The whitewater features, which includes the 4 holes in the river being rebuilt. We hired a contractor there called Colton Steel, and they were low bid and issued a notice to proceed for this reason. So that's a good development also. Moving down to item P, the Northwest Utilities, the Apple Valley Water Line relocation. There was a community outreach meeting, and the residents were very helpful and supportive of the project. The road will be closed off from one side or the other during construction, so they said get on with it for the most part. And we also met with Longmont, and we're trying to coordinate the efforts and schedule with them, and we're working directly with FEMA to try to help with that effort also. With the wastewater treatment plant, the negotiations with Honeywell have been ongoing, and we've seen a little bit of progress there. Under item T, home elevations. Unfortunately, we put that project out to bid and did not receive any bids on that project. So the team is assessing the next steps, and we're trying to take see what alternative approach we might be able to take. It just seems that the costs are quite a bit higher than what FEMA is allowing for that project. And that has a lot to do with all the disasters around the country and a lack of resources. Another project I wanted to report on was the pilot program. All the parks and stream work that we're still implementing. And we're becoming very close to having FEMA conclude our version request, which is a huge step for that project. So that's good news too, and we expect that soon. One of the things that's not on the list that I provided to you is we did have a quarterly meeting with the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, and we talked about some of the project progress. We have begun developing a project list and a grant list to look at the totality of all the efforts in flood recovery, and that's going to be an instrumental tool to help develop the plan for implementation that I've talked about in these meetings. So that process has started in good shape. We also talked about insurance reconciliations, which is a huge issue with Homeland Security, and we've made a lot of progress with that in developing a chart and helping Homeland Security understand how huge of a task that is. There's over $5 million to reconcile that. We also discussed the cash flow spreadsheet and some updates to policy that we're going to make based on a monitoring visit. So, we did discuss the 2018 grant agreement with DOLA for staffing, which was approved recently by Bob Farrells. So that's all I had for the flood recovery update, and I wanted to ask if there are any questions.
Any questions? Trustee Miller?
I was curious, do you have any idea what the timeline is for the extension of the walkway going out to the eastern quarter? Are we waiting for utilities to be extended to do that? No.
We're working on finalizing the alignment of the path itself,
Okay.
and also coordinating the environmental approval of the utility extension through there, and they're kind of tied together. So we don't have all the land ownership issues worked out yet, and we still need to work with the ditch owners and try to come to an agreement with them on use of the land or not use of the land.
Trustee Kerr?
When do you expect the path to be open through Bone Park?
Well, yesterday. We're close to having it open. We had the final bridge railings installed, and there was a mistake made when they were manufactured, and we're trying to fix that to ensure that the bridge is safe for children. So that's held it up for just a little bit here. But I'm not sure when that will be resolved. But,
Are they doing it timeframe?
no, I don't know the time frame just yet. But other than that, I think it's ready to be opened.
Mayor Burton?
Looking at the schedule for completion for McConnell Bridge, it says April, May. Am I correct that Second Avenue does not need to be done during low water, or does it need to be done during low water? It does. So regardless of the completion of McConnell, Second Avenue still won't start until fall. Okay. And then also, I understand about the no bids received for home elevations. I know that there's at least one resident just independently reaching out, attempting to find contractors. Would you mind, would it be you or someone else on staff to communicate with this resident so that they know who their contractor, should they find one, should communicate with, or just reach out and see what sort of assistance the town can give as far as just information, so that if they were to get a contractor who would be interested in working with them or working for them, it would be easy for that contractor to find out whatever information they need.
I contacted the resident today and reached out to talk individually with the resident so that we could communicate what had happened and what the next steps are. And certainly love to look at any contractors that might be viable to do that project. However, they are using HMGP money for that project, and CDBGR money for that project, and so we have to follow the rules for CDBGR as far as bidding. So we can't just bring a contractor in and hire them individually. We have to competitively bid that project. So the bidding and procurement of the contract is very important. So I will explain that to the resident and try to help facilitate. We have tried to look at other methodologies for contracting that, and we've been working with FEMA on that, but haven't come up with a different one just yet.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up on that. So how far apart are we? Significantly? Okay. That was the question. If it, depending on how big of a gap we have, it's worth exploring other funding possibilities maybe, but, okay. I also had a question for you about the pedestrian bridge at 3rd and Park. Can you give a little bit more of a status about where that sits in terms of the review process?
The 3rd and Park is
It's in
we're trying to have, we've applied for that, correct?
No, that's one at 4th.
Oh, 4th.
4th and 11th. No, 3rd and Park is part of a grant that's been submitted and under review stuff.
Is it design review or where,
No, just, well, the design is, we submitted that one with it, but it is a review of a larger project, but it's a piece of that.
So is it in a revision? A revision, or is it a?
Yeah, we're waiting, we just got the hydraulic data submitted to us, and I'm reviewing it, and by the end of the week, we'll have it off to both HMGP and CDBG-DR, and they're reviewing it to see if we can put abutments on each of the buyout properties.
Okay.
So we'll about have everything they need by the end of the week to them, and then we'll just have to wait and see how quick they can turn around the decision.
And then is the next step a permit, or what comes after this step? I guess if they say yes to that, what do we have to do?
It's in the pilot program, so then
we could go
ahead.
forward?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. Any other questions? Recovery? Trustee Dresser?
Yes, you mentioned funding for staffing for 2018. Could you say a little more about that in terms of adequacy, shortcomings?
We feel like we're adequately funded for staffing for 2018. However, two of the positions end at that time, and we do feel like we may need to extend those. We have talked about needing an additional project manager, and so we looked at potentially hiring that project manager and charging the time to the actual projects. And so that's another benefit to hire people other than those. But we did note to Dola that we feel like we may have subsequent requests for additional staff extending through 19 and possibly even further than that.
Thank you. You remind me, I have one more question about the cash flow worksheet. Can you just elaborate, what's the direction, I guess, we're going with? Is the state going to help us revise that tool to make it meaningful for projecting through 2019?
Yes, absolutely. The state, we talked, Ariane gave a great presentation on the cash flow spreadsheet and the insurance reconciliations. And with the cash flow spreadsheet, she had several suggestions for DHSEM on how we could sync up the way we do business and the way it's reported on that report. They were open to all of the ideas, and they gave us the green light to modify that cash flow spreadsheet as long as the bottom line numbers came back the same way, and they will. So we were celebrating that because that'll help quite a bit streamlining the process.
Okay, thank you. To reiterate, one of our goals was to be able to have a good cash flow spreadsheet that projects all the way through 2019 as of April of this year, so that this board knows what they're leaving for the next board. So we could kind of just keep that target on our radar so that we can make sure we have that end product available. And I realize most of the work is being done on our end, but we do have an agreement with the state that basically says they will also confirm their pieces of information that go into that report. So, and open to however you need to change that report and preferably make it easier to follow for all of us.
I think Ariane had some great suggestions, and so she's going to go for it and get that done.
Great.
Sure.
All right.
So, they were also open to allowing us to submit some projects that were going to be held up until closeout, and I don't know the specifics, but it was a good development to allow. They were working with us on getting reimbursements submitted earlier, and so that would help the cash flow also.
Is that part of, well, I think one of the things that would be really helpful for us is when you do close out these projects, to give us a summary report of how well things matched up in the end, and if there are going to be any liabilities for the town related to that project, if you have that information.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
To piggyback on that a bit, we are expecting that the second quarter of 2018 is when we will probably have to dip into the final or the remaining $3 million advance that the state gave us. And if you recall, if we dipped into the $3 million at the final of the $9 million that they advanced us, there's some very specific requirements on reporting and invoicing for those. So it does appear the second quarter is where we're going to hit our low spot for cash flow in 2018, and that's mostly because of, we have McConnell Bridge under construction, Bone Park Phase 2 will be under construction, the utilities, the public works building, lots of major projects. So we do anticipate that, but Richard will keep you advised of that when he gives his monthly report. And then lastly, I just want to comment that when we met with the state last Friday, it does appear that we are going to have about $75 million is where our number's going to come in with state and federal grants toward our recovery. That does not include the local and county type of assistance, but at this point, that is what we're projecting for end of 2019 is $75 million towards flood recovery grants.
All right, thank you. Are there any other staff reports?
Yeah, we have, Joe needs to give a report on an inspection that was conducted recently by Department of Public Health.
Right before the holidays, December 22nd to be precise, we had our every 3-year visit from CDPHE to look at our wastewater treatment plant. They came up with no major findings, but they had 4 other findings and 3 observation recommendations. Of the other findings, most of it's just record keeping, the fact that we had a hard disk crash on our SCADA system and we need to back update it. And we have things, but the one major concern is they can't find a permit for our Eagle Canyon lift station. Now, I have found a letter from CDPHE in 1995 referencing that we submitted the as-built plans for it, but we may have to move forward and work on a permit for that. We did get a commitment from them that they wouldn't make us update it to today's current standards, that it's been working fine for, 22 years, and then we could probably keep it and just get a permit. But right now, the estimate to do that is somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000. So hopefully, we won't have to incur that expense to get that permitted, and somewhere along the line, we can find the data. One consistent thing they constantly bring up is our BOD loading and the influent. And once again, they recommend us moving forward with a pre-treatment plan. And we're working closely with the UEB to come up with one, and hopefully we'll bring one closer. Additionally, we have started our sewer monitoring, and I'm getting way too familiar with the manholes and what's in them in town. But we've been able to do 3 or 4 days of testing now, and we'll be done by the end of the week. So that should get us a feel for where we are at BOD and where we think our biggest problems are. It's a little too soon because the data needs 5 days for the first test to consume, but by next week, we should have a feel for what's going on.
So by next meeting?
By next meeting, yeah, we should have a good feel for where that's coming up. So we are making progress on all those things. We also have the permit in to do the sewer outfall with CDPHE on the Eastern Corridor. And they've asked us, we're gonna have to redo the permit for the Stone Canyon lift station. So we'll be able to do that and get that working. In addition, we have the sewer outfall permit, because Longmont's asked us to move that a little further downstream from their water intakes, which we also use for water, so it's better to get it downstream. And we're in the process of doing that permitting. I think you'll see a sign up by McConnell subdivision and by the dam down there that we're looking at putting an outfall down that direction. So those are the 3 things we have going on with CDPHE currently.
Other questions?
I have a question.
Trustee Law?
So if by next meeting, you'll be able to present us the data from the sewer samples, will we also be looking at a plan to communicate out to residents and businesses at that time?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And additionally, we did talk to CDPHE, and the plant is performing fairly well, so they will look at if we choose of upgrading our plant capacity also.
Okay.
But that's a relatively expensive exercise.
Okay, and I'm talking about, we've been talking about targeted meetings with businesses and residences and kind of one-on-one visits. I just kind of like to get that plan in place by.
I've asked Kim to try to reschedule that meeting that was canceled.
Okay.
But we will be able to do that with more data.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've already been able to do the businesses on East Main Street, and we're just finishing up the businesses up on regular Main Street and be able to catch most of that. And then all I gotta do is collect some background information, and we should be done our sampling and have a real good idea of where things are at. Generally, everything is running high. We're consistently troublemakers on our own.
All right, thank you.
And just one other real quick announcement, I just wanted to let the board know that we did get full clearance from Northern Colorado Water Conservancy District to rebuild the October and November holes on their property. And they are, we've gotten their full clearance to move forward with that.
That's great.
That's great news, yeah.
And the call from.
Oh, and the Army Corps permit being issued. So just let people know that that's been a concern for some of our constituents. That's all for staff tonight.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so.
Can I ask,
I'm sorry,
I
Trustee Walker.
have 2 more questions for staff. I've been out of town for a couple of days, so maybe they're up, but I know the banners are in, and I'm wondering if there's a schedule to get them up and if that's a priority.
Kim's over there. There is, we're waiting, once they took all the holiday lights down, which happened through January, we're gonna start putting them up with Public Works and Parks probably in the next 2 to 4 weeks.
Okay. And then I also wanted to touch base on business licenses and communication about the rate for that in 2018 and 2017 and where we are with that communication.
Well, it's on the February 20th agenda
Okay.
with the whole fee schedule to approve all of the fees. So, yeah.
Okay, so after the approval of the total fee schedule, then we can go ahead and get those
Yeah,
communications
there's a
out.
letter that went out to all the businesses saying that they would have till March to renew for this year.
Okay, yeah, let me see that.
Yeah.
I'll look for it.
Okay, all right. Anything else? Okay, we're going to move on to audience business. This is the portion of the meeting where the audience is welcome to address the board on items of interest that are not on tonight's agenda as a public hearing or as public comment. So if you're here to speak to one of the ordinances, and we do have ordinance 1029, which is related to rezoning of town-owned parcel to municipal, that supports the library, a new library that's being built. That opportunity to speak will come later. We also have a separate public comment period for the housing issue that will be later on tonight's agenda. So I'm asking if you're here for housing specifically, if you would wait until that item comes up on the agenda later on. Otherwise, any other topic is open for audience business. You can come forward, give your name and address for the record. And we'll go 4 minutes, please, for audience business.
Greg Lowell, 411 Raymond Court. As much as I'd like to thank most people here to listen to my esteemed colleague Steve Sims, I think most of the audience here is concerned with item 10 on the agenda, and I would ask that if possible you could move that up perhaps to following Steve's presentation in the interest of timeliness.
We have a number of people here for general business. I don't think the ordinance is going to take a long time, but thank you for asking. We are trying to be considerate of that. Anyone else for audience business? We suspected as much. All right, so we will go ahead and move on to closing audience business and move on to the Ecology Board update. I'd like to invite Steve Sims to come forward.
You can take some.
I'll take a mic.
While Steve is getting situated, I do have one appointment I would like to make tonight. If the board has no objection, I would like to appoint Julie Boyle as a new member of the Sustainable Futures Commission. So, congratulations, Julie, for signing up for a well-paying job. All right. Okay, we'll come back to Steve. And we have 15 minutes allocated for this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Sullivan and Board of Trustees. A pleasure to be here this evening. And can everybody hear me all right if I'm speaking at this volume? I'm not sure if this is picking it up or not. I would just like to give you a summary of what went on from the Ecology Advisory Board in 2017 and maybe touch a little bit on 2018, depending on time. So, the Ecology Board tries to find a balance between the economics of our community and the ecology of our community. We've realized that we're surrounded by open space and we have a lot of opportunity to bring people into our community to spend money and to help our economic situation through our ecological value. And what we have ecologically is quite a valuable component. So with that in mind, in our monthly meetings, we're always having that in the back of our mind. The Ecology Advisory Board is all volunteer staffed, as you would know, and we try to address all the items pertaining to environmental components and trying to stay ahead of the curve on the design concepts that are constantly coming up and anything that has an ecological or an environmental component. The Ecology Board was previously the Tree Board. We were formed many, many years ago for Tree City USA status. and we've just tried to keep that moving forward and morphed it into the ecology board right in the wake of the flood. We feel like as a board, we've reshaped ourselves from just trees and landscape and things of that nature, more towards the river restoration. That was probably the #1 component when you were liaison to our board, and really helped us grow our board and actually find some direction to our board. So I thank you for you had like a professionalism, you added a level of professionalism to our board, which really got us some traction. So it was fun. And our board is very like-minded, and it's everybody seems to enjoy contributing their ideas, and there's a lot of opportunity for ideas to share. So we're working on river restoration, we're working on the parks rebuilding, the buyout properties, and then of those nature, we try to move into public outreach. So we wanted to make connecting with the public and making them aware of some of the ecological value of our community by courses or classes or talks and so forth. We feel like the natural resources of this community could merit a natural resource position. That's probably one of our strongest objectives or prerogatives this year, is to look at all the staffing, and as the staffing is changing for 2018, if there's an individual or the opportunity for someone with natural resource skills, studies, education, at any level, maybe even collaboratively with Longmont or Hygiene, Boulder County, for natural resource skills, because the replanting of what we're doing in this community will not look that well, it will not take, and it will take a long time to establish if we don't use some expertise to keep the things that have been stuck in the ground, keep them growing and green, and try to keep them abundant. And Dave, I've been working with Dave a lot, our board has been working with Dave a lot, for example, with Ward and a lot of replantings in Laverne Johnson Park, which was great. We identified a lot of vegetation that died off due to poor watering and soil. So with that natural resource, then we moved into a lot of the designs we've commented on. We've written official statements and visioning statements for Bowen Park, Lions Valley River Park design, the buyout properties, specifically the Martin parcel and the Stacy parcel. Those are significant parcels. The Martin especially has phenomenal diversity in that area, and it's a very unique parcel from a bird perspective and wildlife perspective, just because it's so heavily wooded. We do want to be cognizant of housing for rebuilding and so forth, and try to help also weigh in on that, but also identify those parcels that are very unique in our community. And this year we want to work on identifying a gradient of value to the properties that we do have from a park perspective or from an open space perspective. The buyout properties have given the town a tremendous amount of land that is not buildable. So what do you do with that land? And we're watching as things come forth in that area. And then if opportunity arises, if we can do any kind of suggestions on natural vegetation that might help with bird habitat or whatever else. Bird habitat is rather an interesting item because along the Front Range here, it's a very unique, what they call ecotone, and it's actually quite rich in bird population. And there are a lot of ornithologists and birders in the Front Range. CU has an ornithology department. And so it attracts a lot of people. And so that would be an economic benefit to our community through just birding perspective. How am I doing on my time? Am I down to?
You are at, I had 6 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay, good. All right, so with this Martin and Stacy properties, we're keeping that in mind, and other open spaces. Moving towards the parcel across the river from the Martin parcel is where Botanical Gardens is potentially going to be looked at as a place for community gardens and botanical gardens. And Grima Fairfax, one of our board members, is very involved in that. And it seems like a really good location. So working with the town, she has a good budget to work with, and that would be a nice amenity to the community. Kirk Carlson is also prior Parks and Rec director. He's on our board, and he is now Parks and Rec director for Adams County. So he brings a lot of really interesting ideas from a larger municipality like that. For example, the shooting range and some of the cleanup issues that they had with lead and so forth from the shooting range. So he brings another perspective that might help this board making some decisions going forward. We're involved in the Planet Bluegrass annexation, just some concerns about how it changed from Boulder County to town property with wetlands and riparian zones. And then we wrote visioning guides for Martin property and South St. Vrain corridor. And then we've been working on a tree ordinance that I think has kind of worked its way through your eyes and then back to us, and we want to define some of the details on it, get an ordinance in town for that. And we've done a tree giveaway in the community, choke cherries, pinyon pines, ponderosas. We've published a noxious weed. We work with Boulder County, bought a noxious weed book, 300 copies of this through Alliance Community Foundation grant, and we pass that away. So that's just another outreach for the community for noxious weeds. Faye Marshall is one of our members, and she's very involved in the Lyons Elementary School. I saw Andrew here this evening. And so there's a lot going on with the elementary school and the kids. They've done a contest, an Arbor Day, tree tagging, calculating the benefits of tree, moisture, cooling, so forth. And they do some regular activities with that, a microinvertebrate study in the river, and aquatic insects and crustaceans. The kids are learning how to do those studies and so forth. So we're involved in that aspect. And then the public outreach, another aspect of that is we've done Stone Ridge Farms. We have Joel Such, a local expert on birds, phenomenal kid in Costa Rica right now. Did some studies on Martin Parcel, we know a lot about that. We did a hummingbird documentary, get together at the Lions Farmette. So those movies are a nice way to get 20 or 30 people together, a like-mindedness. And then we have the botanical gardens coming into town, basically to grow native plants and to kind of showcase our local species and help propagate for maybe giveaway to people within the community. And then we have a walking arboretum that we put together, which is really cool. There's a flyer around at all the podiums in town and the visitor center, and then an online version of it, which is fantastic. We're working with Boulder. Boulder Data Camera has a woman named Carol who writes a weekly article. She's going to try to draw some of the Boulder folks into the community on this walking arboretum. I think over 100 and some, over 40 trees, just a diversity of species of trees. And then Kirk Carlson and Ariel's help on scanning that and getting it onto the town website. So we're getting a lot of our articles up there. We have the Weed Posse formed with Kathy Rivers, and that's kind of a small group, a side group. And that's just trying to keep down on the noxious weeds so the natives can compete. And then we also have Greg Lowell is on our board, and he writes a monthly column for the Redstone Review. He's taken 2 first places and second place with the Colorado Press Association, so we've got some nice coverage there on topics related to ecology in our community. And then David Batts is an advisor on our board. He was on our board, and he is now on the Watershed Board, so we stay in close contact as the Watershed Board spun off of the Ecology Board to stay more focused on the river corridor, riparian corridor issues. And so with that said, that's kind of what was covered in a lot of our meetings. Mike was very aware of all those, and thank you for your input and time in relaying some of that to the board. And then just going forward, we'd like to to look into the natural resource position, we have a Garden in a Box program coming up with a joint program with the City of Boulder, give away or reduced costs to the citizens in this town for pretty cool native plants, Garden in a Box program. McConnell Ponds and the river restoration, going out to Highway 36, the Lucanen property, we're very interested in that, keeping our eye on how that's gonna go. Wastewater treatment, we want to be aware of that in the stormwater runoff. Those discharges into the river and try to take those discharges through native vegetation ponds and try to clean up mercury and so forth that might be in the waters of contaminants. Botanical gardens, water quality, continue our outreach to the town, and then we have Fifth Avenue is kind of a gateway to northern Lyons, and we have a vision for Fifth Avenue that we're going to try to work on this year. We have a sewer issue up there, so we're holding off a little bit on, there's quite a bit of funds available to do some studies on that. We want to try to tie it into the existing town look on High Street and Main Street. And then we have Jerry Janka, he's our most recent member. He's a professor at the University of Colorado in environmental anthropology, and he's trying to work on an internship to get a grad student in our community to assist with some of these environmental issues.
You know, I want to leave a little time for questions. Do you,
Okay.
I don't know, you probably have much more?
That's about it. We're just going to say we miss Matt Manley and Mike Harris and the disconnect of the momentum that we had with those. So hopefully we can find some new staff to work with.
All right.
Okay, so yeah, I'll open it up for questions. I went through quite a few items there.
I'll open it to the board first. Anybody have a question? Trustee Miller?
So we have boxes of those, and Visitor Center has some, and then some of our community outreach programs will bring the box with us and just give them away.
Can we have some up front here, Steve?
You have some up front too? Great.
No, can we have some?
Yes, okay, okay.
Anybody else? Questions? So I just have a couple things that, thank you first of all for the update, and thanks to the entire board for all the hard work you guys do. You do a lot of really great community education and service programs. And here, did you do the Raptor program last year at the school?
We did a Raptor a few years ago.
It was a couple years, okay.
Yeah, we kind of changed it up a little bit.
Got it. Okay, that's always a thing too. I guess I just wanted to bring up, one of the things that we are considering is opening the board and commission ordinance for some changes that some of the other boards have requested. I think it would be a really good time for you to revisit the Watershed Advisory Board and the Ecology Board and have you guys get together and make a recommendation to us about whether those still need to be separate boards now that some of the river restoration work is wrapping up. I think it's just a good time to reevaluate that because they never were actually made official in the code. So we either need to make them official or we need to reevaluate whether it's better as a task force of the Ecology Board or whatever structure might make sense for them. So we've had that discussion a couple times at the Watershed Advisory Board, which I'm now the liaison to. So might be a good conversation. If everybody's happy with the way things are, that's great. But I think it would be good just to have the discussion.
There's some overlap definitely in the ordinance.
Okay.
Do you have an idea for is the Watershed Advisory Board a long-term board, or was it a temporary board at the time of river restoration? I never was.
Well, it's actually, going in a lot of detail, but the origins of it actually come from the IGA of Boulder County. So it was envisioned prior to the flood, and then the flood is what actually got it to happen. So I think the question is, I mean, it still needs to exist in some way. It just doesn't need to be a separate board, would be the question. Secondly, the tree ordinance, I don't believe we have seen that. So I would like to see if you have something you want us to review.
Okay.
If you can just get that to Victoria and she can bring it,
Great.
or at least have staff review it and we can decide.
Is that where it kind of
Okay. Okay, I would just hate for the work to not go completed if it's ready for something the board needs to consider. And then finally, just, we haven't had any recent discussion about the shooting range proposal that Boulder County has on there that they've been working on. I would be interested in the Ecology Board assessment of whether there'd be any negative impacts to the ecology based on that proposal.
Okay.
So I don't know if the board would agree with asking the Ecology Board to kind of bring us back something formal in terms of your assessment
We'd be
and what
happy
your
to.
recommendation would be.
Yeah.
So those are three things I kind of pulled out of it as far as
As I was rambling down my list.
2018 maybe priority list, but just other work that you've already, sounds like you've already done, and just we need to wrap it up. But thank you very much for coming and giving us the update and for all the work, and
Appreciate the
it's a good group.
opportunity. Thank you.
And tell Garima we're excited about her botanic gardens.
That's good. Good.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you all.
All right, the next item on the agenda is the ordinance and public hearing. We have one item on that agenda. Would the clerk please introduce the item?
Ordinance 1029, an ordinance of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Lyons rezoning certain town-owned property with medium-high density residential district, R2A, to municipal facilities and service district and amending the official zoning map of the Town of Lyons.
All right, is there a staff report?
Is Paul here? Kim, is Paul back? Yeah, our staff
He's
best.
left. There he is.
Oh, he can stand there. He can stand there for a minute. We need the staff overview on the ordinance.
Oh, on the zoning?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. So, the rezoning you have before you is a rezoning to rezone the portion of the street that was originally zoned, I'm sorry, the quitclaim portion that was originally zoned R2. So it's to rezone the area from that was a railroad, as well as some area north of that. So it's the 100 feet from the edge of this parcel north. The quitclaim be between 5th and 3rd Avenue to from R2 to municipal. It was zoned R2 prior to 1998, and so I cannot determine, I haven't been able to determine why that was done that way, but I think it was just that it was, the town zoned its right of way, and this was part of another zoning classification.
Are there any questions for staff? All right, hearing none, we will go ahead and open the public comment for ordinance 1029. Would anyone like to speak to this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. Could I ask the board for a motion, and then we will begin our discussion?
I move that we approve ordinance 1029.
I'll second the motion.
Would anyone like to start discussion? Mayor Britton?
I think following staff recommendation makes perfect sense here. And the vision for this area is municipal, and so to rezone it to municipal makes sense to me.
Any other comments? I guess my only comment was I would actually like to have at least one whereas that states why we're doing this. This is being done because the voters approved a mill levy to build a new library. And it really doesn't, I think just a simple whereas to say, you know, we're doing this in support of the library that was approved by the voters in the year that we approved the ballot. So I think I'm flexible in the language that staff would like to use for that. So I would like to offer that as an amendment, that we add a whereas referring to the purpose of the rezoning.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? I'll call for the vote on the amendment. Okay, passes 7-0, thank you. All right, if there's no further discussion, we'll call for a vote on the overall motion to approve. Hearing none. All right, the motion is approved 7-0. Thank you. Would the clerk please read the items on the consent agenda into the record?
This will be the first reading for ordinance 1030, an ordinance of the Town of Lyons amending ordinance 1026, to reflect a later effective date of January 1, 2019 for lodging occupation tax for the town of Lyons if approved by the registered electors of the town of Lyons at an election to be held on April 3rd, 2018. Resolution 2018-22, a resolution designating a town of Lyons representative and alternate representative to the Colorado Municipal Association of Municipalities, known as CAMU, the February 2018 accounts payable, and the January 16, 2018 Board of Trustees meeting minutes.
All right, would anyone like to pull any items from the consent agenda?
I'd like to pull item number 1.
Anything else? All right, is there a motion to approve the remaining items?
We approve the remaining items of the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for your vote. It passes 7-0, thank you. All right, we'll move on to general business. I'd like to invite Christine Vining from Honeywell to come forward, please. Thank you for being here tonight.
Well, you have to speak closely and loudly.
Okay. Is that good? Can you hear me? No? Okay. I'll try and speak louder. Let me know. I just wanted to thank you for having us. I'm Christine Viney from Honeywell, and this is Dr. Robbie Baskar. And we're just here to kind of introduce ourselves, provide an update on the negotiations that we're having with the town. We are still working through some of the items that were raised in the meeting that we had with Victoria and Connie, and we are making a lot of headway, a lot of progress on those. The town did pay $100,000 in good faith towards some of those items that were raised. Honeywell is going to reimburse those funds to the city. And then we've also brought Dr. Robbie Baskar, who is a waste treatment specialist.
To work with your international wastewater.
He is our international.
Yes.
He does a lot of stuff all over the world.
Yes.
He is here to spend a couple of days with Joe and Wayne at the treatment plant. He spent this morning there, and he'll be there tomorrow working with them, reviewing the plant since it's been up and running for about approximately a year, a little over a year. Reviewing the compliance report that was, I think Joe kind of discussed earlier, the findings, the observations, those types of things. And then we'll be going back and kind of talking with our engineering team about those findings and observations. And then we would like to come back to a council meeting in March, probably the second council meeting, preferably, and propose kind of a final solution of the things that we have kind of reviewed and will be continuing to review.
All right.
March 5th, I guess the second meeting.
Probably the second one, yeah.
Okay.
First, going to ask staff if you have any questions you want to start with.
Not necessarily. I feel like we're still in negotiations, and so some of these details haven't been worked out yet, and we want to give Robbie the opportunity to take a look at the plans, really get in there and look at how things are operating and come back with other suggestions. So at this point, just thank you for understanding and reimbursing the town for the $100,000 we have put forward that will really be utilized in that funding stream that we need a lot.
Yes.
And just look forward to having you come and work with staff and our consultants, our contractors on some resolution here. So look forward to meeting with you probably before March 19th
Yes.
in another more formal negotiation.
I'll turn it over to the trustees if anybody has any questions.
I'm just happy we're moving forward.
Yes. Getting it all finalized, yes.
Thank you for working with us.
Yes, and we're here. I think there was a little bit of silence here. I'm here in Denver, so anytime we need to be here, just shout out, let us know. And we've brought Ravi in from Kansas City. So.
Yeah, I think you.
He's been here
maybe-
before. Once.
Okay. Yeah, I think your first week on the job was our first
My
meeting.
was,
Okay.
It's my role, yes.
Well, we do appreciate you being here, and some of the progress that we've made since that first meeting is encouraging. I think, we're anxious to get this resolved, as you can imagine. So,
Good working relationship moving forward.
agreed. So we'll be looking forward to the next update, and we'll get something scheduled, so.
We'll get something scheduled with Christine and
Yeah, with me and Kevin. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is a public comment specific to the town's purchase and sale agreement with Lions Valley Park. Parcel specifically known as Tract A, which is 0 Carter Drive. Is there a sign-up sheet going on?
Yeah. Anyone else need to be on the sign-up who's not? Okay.
Because we do have a large crowd, we're going to ask everyone to please keep their comments to 3 minutes each, and we can go ahead and get started if the staff would like to call out the first few names on the list.
John Perkins, Jeannie and Bob Sturman, and then Tom Kramer.
Just please remember to give your name and address for the record, please. Any comment? 3 minutes?
I'm John Perkins, 330 McDonald Drive. I live below the diversion dam, or diversion, or whatever you want to call it. I'm the third house south down from there. And I was wondering if you guys had any plans on fixing that bank? I'm new at this. Do you guys answer this? Or okay.
We don't. We don't. This is just an opportunity for you to speak to us.
I was at a river meeting here last week, and they told us that Keith Bell, it fell through with him, so we wouldn't be getting any river bank work done on ours below the dam. And I was wondering, that is you guys' property, I understand, and I was wondering if you guys are gonna do something with that? Any plans at all with that? And then you're gonna do a sewer dump, I understand. It was brought up earlier. I understand that'll be treated water and it won't smell or anything. Can you check on that? That'll be dumped below the diversion, I understand. And what really happened with this Keith Bell thing? Why that fell through, why he didn't approve of the way that was gonna be restored? I was told that he didn't want it that way, so ours fell out too also, because if he's not in, then everybody's. So site 3, I'm talking about, is down the drain because of that. Because of Bell, his property is directly south of there. And then just one other thing, on Bond Park, on the west end of Bond Park, there's a little park that somebody started down in there along 7. I was just wondering, is there gonna be a cleanup on that, or is this city property also?
You talking about the labyrinth?
The what?
Labyrinth?
I don't know, it's just, it's along the river, there's bowling balls, there's crap in there, and you know what I'm saying, somebody created a little,
Yeah, it's called the labyrinth.
is that city property?
It's actually in the county right now.
Okay. I was just wondering if you guys plan on cleaning that up, or is this gonna be condoned? For sure though, the bank, it's not if, it's when another flood's gonna happen. And the river's 20 feet closer to my house than it was. So if this isn't taken care of, this bank, it will be in my property the next flood. So this bank needs to be taken care of. On these 4 homes below the ditch especially, 5, you could call it, but anyway, that's all I got.
Thank you.
John, would you be willing to give me your, just for me, like, email?
Who was next on the list?
Yeah.
Sturman? Tom Kramer will be up after the Sturmans.
Bob and Jane Sturman, we live at 332 McConnell Drive.
Can you speak up, please?
To the microphone, please.
Bob and Jane Sturman from 332 McConnell Drive. And we were all affected by the flood and feel for all those who lost their homes. And we are not against low-cost affordable housing in the right location. People voted down Vaughn Park, Williams property, and voted for the Eastern Corridor, which we were told was probably going to be where the affordable housing was going to be. And we really have a problem with the way this was handled by a few trustees behind closed doors with no public input. And it just seems like you're not really working for the whole town of Lyons. I think we should try to be open and try to heal this community rather than keep stirring it up about the past vote that failed. The vote is done. Let's leave it behind. Let's move forward. We are residents of the Lyons Valley Park. We have invested our life savings along with all the other people who invested in that area. We were invested into Lyons a lot of money, and we invested into a planned neighborhood. And we're told there would be more homes similar to everyone else's. And now you have voted behind closed doors to change this whole neighborhood. It's going to affect our neighborhood, it's going to affect the safety of our children, it's going to affect the values of our home, besides the safety things going in and out Carter Drive, which our neighbor sent me with a message that they will be very much affected. All this traffic, construction, cars, whatever, into this area building low-cost homes. Why have you chosen such an area? Seems to me we should try to heal this community and go with what the people vote for. There's real safety concerns, and there's also concern about the taxes on these affordable homes. They don't pay much taxes, or any. Who's going to do the upkeep? Who's going to pay for the water and the sewer, and the fire protection, and the upkeep, and the road maintenance? Who's going to pay? We're really questioning whether you're really working for the whole community. Thank you.
Next.
Kramer?
I'm gonna switch my technologies. I hope this one's a little louder. That's okay, that's still fine.
Good evening, my name is Tom Kramer, I live at 407 Main Court. Full disclosure, I serve
Having trouble hearing you. Yep.
Sorry. Tom Kramer, I live at 407 Raymond Court. Full disclosure, I serve on the board for the HOA. Currently, 105 homes, I believe. Probably total build out from Marquette will be 107, 108 is my understanding. I did read this last Monday, we became aware of this effort for the Tract A as well as lots 15 through 32 for Mr. Wickham and his development. One concern, I guess, and again, I'm not speaking for the entire HOA development because I'm making observations on my own here, but concerns over whether it's 43 multi-units or 100 plus. I saw 40K per dwelling being a number put about for the full 4 million grant. So regardless, let's take a conservative number of 43 for the affordable housing plus the 18 lots 15 through 32. That'd be about a 55 or 61 lots on top of the 107 I already have in that area. The only way in and out of that development is McConnell Drive. That's about a 55% increase in traffic just with the 43 homes. That's a big concern. So just need clarification on what exactly is a multifamily. Is that actually 43 families, or is that 43 duplexes? It wasn't clear based upon the article that I read anyway. The other thing is, we were here around the flood time, and the South Ledge ditch experienced significant leakage, which ran down McConnell Drive. At that time, it was not completely paved, but we had a gracious fireman at the time come out and redirect the flow into the storm drains because it was flooding down the street. And I don't believe there's been any major mitigation of that South Ledge ditch since that time. Just some earthen dam built up there. So I guess I'd like to have that piece addressed in terms of lots that would be backed up against that ledge, significant number of them. And then finally, the Tract A, which was designated for the affordable housing and to be transacted by the town. If anybody's walked up there, there's a lot of flagstone bedrock. Just need to understand how that would get demoed to make it developable. Markel, when we were on the HOA that was managed by Michael Markel before it got turned over to the Homeowners Association, he specifically stated that he was backing out of that because it would cost so much to develop those properties back there, including the Tract A property. So I'm just curious, we're looking at potentially $4 million grant. How much of that would be used just to build the infrastructure and make that area habitable?
Thank you. I'm sorry, that's the
Okay,
time.
that's it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Greg Lowell, followed by Steve Uzel.
Greg Lowell, 411 Raymond Court. Last year I read with great interest your Lions Primary Planning Area Master Plan. I thought it was very revealing. What was most revealing to me was the fact that of the 3 sub-areas studied, there was the South St. Vrain, there was Apple Valley, and there was the Eastern Corridor. All but the Eastern Corridor indicated that residential development in any of those areas would result to an annual net deficit to the town. The only one that actually paid for itself, and actually a little bit more, was the Eastern Corridor project, and that was only because it had that nice mix of residential and commercial. So I guess I would ask you if we're going to see the same sort of financial analysis on the 43 units the town is proposing. My suspicion is that it will probably result in a net deficit to the town. We're talking not 43 individual dwellings, but rather we're talking about multifamily units, wherein the building itself, which may house 3, 4, 5, is taxed. This has all been sort of sprung on us at the last minute. We all learned about this Tuesday when we read the Longmont Times call. It's all moving very quickly. My hope is that this is not going to be the only public input for this project. As we go further down the line on this, we'll have an opportunity to express our opinions. Might be even nice to have a vote on it, but I'm not hoping for that. I don't know what the town statutes would require on that. I know there was some indication on the Eastern Corridor project that there would be public input to that. I'm hoping that we would at least get that same sort of public input for this project going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Uzel, followed by Laverne Johnson.
My name is Steve Uzel. I live at 340 McConnell Drive. I've only been here a year. And at the point that we bought the house, we were told that Tract A was going to end up being the possibility of multifamily with single family behind that. But at no point in time was it stated that that would end up being low income or affordable housing, which is just a euphemism for the same thing. So the question becomes, is there some kind of collusion, is a word that seems to be in the news all the time, as to why this was done? None of that information was revealed to those of us who bought those houses at this point. And we were told that whatever low-income housing was going to end up being replaced by those folks who did lose their house during the flood was going to be at the site of the old waterworks. I just don't understand it. If you do the math of what's up there, it is a ridiculous increase in all the rest of what everybody has said so far is going to happen in that community. And we would never, ever have bought that house had we had the truth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Laverne Johnson, followed by Amy.
Tom Bashaway after that.
Laverne Johnson, 306 Evans. I think this is too good to be true. I've sat here for 3 years trying to find some land, and I don't know how we were disillusioned to think that we didn't have any land, and here we have 4 acres. And I do understand that it's going to be an inconvenience, but what about these folks that lost their homes and are moved out of town and don't have any hope? And I would hope that we could consider all of them. I have lots of friends that are living everywhere else but Lyons, and they'd like to come to Lyons. I'm surprised at Keith Bell that he's willing to do this, and I think it's very noble of him because through the years we've dealt with Keith Bell on various problems, and I didn't think he was our friend, and so now here he shows up and I'm for him. So that's my opinion of it. We do need houses, and everybody can't afford a large house and don't want a large house. And I think it's very nice that we could get something where people could move back. And I would ask that they be given the first chance for those houses. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
Followed by Tom. Hi, Amy Reinholz, 434 Reese. I welcome housing that is affordable for people who don't make 100% of the area median income. And I write a column every week in the paper, and I guess I'm speaking to you all, you already know this. So I think that, like we saw 4 years ago, I believe it was, there's a lot of misinformation again. So I think it's really important that this community, this board, try to get the real facts out there. I'm not sure what else I want to say except that I welcome everybody here to talk to me about the research I did on 2 different housing task forces, and I can provide some of that information to you all. I also would like to say that the 4 years that I've been writing for newspapers and covering this, I have followed a lot of the process for the Planning and Community Development Commission. All of those meetings, all of the Board of Trustees meetings, and there's definitely a robust process here in this community, which has plenty of opportunity for people to participate. So, as a few other folks have said, I'm looking forward to seeing that with whatever proposed projects there are. And I also would like to say I would definitely welcome affordable housing in the Old Town North neighborhood where I live currently. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tom Bachwig. I live at 114 Nolan Court in Lyons Valley Park. I've been a resident there for 12 years since the development first came in. And I was here during the flood and saw the people that lost their homes and also very much support the idea that I'd like to see an affordable housing option available to those homes in the future. I just heard about this, unfortunately, about 2 days ago, so I'm probably not as well informed as I'd like to be. But there was a couple things that struck me as problematic about this particular thing, about this particular project. Number one is the comment was made that that Mr. Bell apparently was very generous in giving up this piece of property, but I do know that it came out very clearly from Markel previously that he decided to forego this piece of property because it was so expensive to build on. It is apparently just rock below, and he said he just couldn't figure out a way to make it work commercially. So if the community is going to support this and build affordable housing here, I would think it would be very much the community's interest to study what it's going to cost to build on these plots of land if it's just basically rock below, and building the infrastructure there would be extremely expensive. And I would hate to see it be a boondoggle for the town. I'm also concerned about the traffic at 100 initial homes going into that area. The current development has about, as Tom said, about 100 houses. So I think the amount of congestion could be a problem, so I'd like to see how that would be addressed, both for the safety and the congestion of the area. Yeah, so I think traffic, I think congestion, and I think the affordability of actually building in that location are concerns that I think need to be addressed carefully before the time moves ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff Baldridge.
Jeff Baldridge at 349 McConnell Drive. Thank you for your time. I'd already contacted the mayor to be part of the design committee because I think having people that live in the community, if this moves forward, is an important piece of this development. The purchase, as many others have said, came as a surprise. It was something that I think it may have been a unanimous vote here among the council, but it is a surprise to the community that these 4 acres would be purchased with short notice. And it didn't give a lot of reaction time for the RFP either, because I think it's supposed to be, the proposal is going to be finished in early March, and that's a very short time for someone to react to all that, unless it was pre-planned somehow before the purchase was done. There were 736 voters that participated in the Apple Valley annexation, and if you take the 107 homes, just assume 2 homeowners of voting age in each home, that's about 200 plus voters, maybe 300 or 400. And one would have to ask, would they approve this, and would they have chosen that many homes, or how many homes would be there? It was originally platted for 43, that heard plans of 100, and I think that's a concern among the community. 43, okay, you could fit that in 3 acres, reasonable density, and then I think people would entertain it with a bit more encouragement or enthusiasm. As others have said, Markel declined developing it. What I've read is that we've proposed cost sharing with the developer to build these homes, and I see that as a financial risk to the town. So if there's blasting involved, then it gets very difficult to just put in utilities, sewer, electrical, gas. Then the homes aren't even built, and now there's infrastructure that can't be used. And I think it attracted attention because of its quick nature and that it was done without a lot of community input. It was also done that there's no time to react. There's not a vote for it. The community doesn't have a chance to run for the board to have a voice on it because it's all happening like in the next 6 to 8 weeks. So I think there's a concern from the constituents that they don't have their voices heard. But it's a great opportunity. If it's developed in partnership with Lions Valley Park, I think that we can build a piece of the community there that really will fit in. But it's a matter of including everybody in how it goes through in order to make sure that there are people that can move back here that can't afford the full value of Lions Valley Park home. The market rate's pretty high right now. And I really like that everybody's here. This is very high civic engagement. I came from Boulder, and I don't know that there would be this many people willing to speak there. So I'm proud to be a part of the community and really happy to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrew Moore.
Jeff, I appreciate your sentiments, actually, well spoken, and thank you. I am totally for affordable housing. I live at 336 McConnell Drive. It is literally in my backyard we're talking about. And it's a big deal, obviously, for many reasons, and I think that in following Jeff's sentiments, I think that if we can do this together, we can do it well. I'm particularly concerned about, in the request for proposal, there's a section 1, development vision, comprehensive plan, that part A, fit within and enhance the environment. That first bulleted point says, inventory the property's natural characteristics, soils, topography, hydrology, vegetation prior to the site design, so physical features and views are an integral part of the development. So I think that berm needs to be preserved. It's a bluff that is a huge part of the entry of that corridor into our valley. And then following that piece, a little bit later on in part D, the sustainability action plan, the last one, it says identify and eliminate existing sources of light and noise pollution coming from municipality-owned entities. I would also say that a part of the character of our neighborhood is that we see the stars, and I'm super concerned about preserving that. So those are two kind of simple, detail-oriented things, but when I get the participation in early, so thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak that didn't put their name on the list? You can come forward now.
Thank you. My name is Arlene Brownell. I live at 114 Nolan Court in Lyons Valley Park. My husband did speak earlier, but what hasn't been addressed here is I was here after the flood, and one of the most traumatic memories in my life is driving out through the open space and out to get to Fifth Street to go over the Fifth Street Bridge, which we were allowed to do one car at a time. For 2 years, we will not have 2 roads in and out of Lyons Valley Park. We have the McConnell Bridge closed, we'll have the 2nd Avenue Bridge closed. You're thinking of adding multiple family units, an increase not just of the traffic in the neighborhood, which, yes, that'll happen, but I'm really worried about the next event, whether it's a flood or a fire like they had in Sonoma. They can occur. Is there any attempt to build a road that would allow in an emergency out to 36 or some alternative route to get that community evacuated? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, that'll be the end of our, oh, I'm sorry.
I was waiting to see if anybody else was going to say what I wanted to say.
Just name and address
Yes.
first.
My name is Elizabeth Leonard. I live at 347 McConnell. I actually came here tonight because I'm taking a class to become a principal, and I need to observe a board meeting. And the next Board of Education meeting is on Valentine's Day, and I think that was so awesome. So, but it obviously affects me and my neighborhood and my new house. I've been a resident of Lyon for 12 years. I moved from 106 Longspeed Drive over to the new McConnell neighborhood after the flood. I guess my question isn't about affordable housing, because we've all said that we really, in our community, would like to have some kind of affordable housing that brings back some of our residents and continues to create diversity in our community. My question is, have there been discussions or are there examples of how affordable housing integrates into neighborhoods and sustains the feel of the neighborhood, as well as the cost to the town? Is the town incurring too much debt as part of it? But also, is the change in the population of the neighborhood affecting the likelihood of our investments? The investment of our current houses that we already own. And can I ask the question, I mean, I know you said we can't ask questions, but when we ask questions in this forum, do you answer them later? Or do we just ask them into?
Well, I know that it's a kind of a frustrating, sometimes experience to use, but this is really truly a time for us to just listen. And the idea is not to get into extended debates with people in the moment. The idea is to really listen and kind of hear the feedback, and that's why they.
So it's like question gathering.
It is. It's literally.
Then that is my question.
Hard listening
Are
for
there
us is what
examples
we do
where
here.
this has happened successfully? Are there examples where you've brought affordable housing into an environment where people have invested a lot in their homes, and it has continued to keep the value of their homes and enrich their communities?
Thank you.
Yeah.
And if there's anyone else, I will make a few comments. Come on up.
Julie Boyle, I live at 224 Welch Drive. I would just like to echo previously expressed concerns about the fiscal plausibility of this project. And I actually thought I had missed something here, which kind of surprised me because I kind of try to keep up on what's happening with the Board of Trustees. But it's my impression that this whole purchase of the 4 acres, and please correct me if I'm wrong, was done primarily in executive session. So I share concerns about the openness of this process, and it seems to me that that sentiment has been expressed multiple times this evening. So I hope the board really takes that to heart and considers working more with the community on this whole affordable housing issue. It's such a loaded issue. And I think we all owe it to each other to engage in planning for it with open minds and hearts, more so than perhaps has been done. And finally, I just want to echo what Mr. Lowell said about the whole Lions primary planning area process. And during discussions and public hearings about South St. Vrain, or about that LPPA, several of the trustees pointed out that the fiscal analysis of the South St. Vrain and Apple Valley Road areas would indicate that in the future, of course, no consideration would be given to developing housing in those areas because they would result in a net loss of revenue to the town. So I'm puzzled by this because that 4 acres, I think, is part of the South St. Vrain watershed. So lots of concerns. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Anyone else? We can only do one.
Something I forgot to
Sorry.
add. Okay.
Sorry. Anyone who hasn't spoken already? Sorry.
Good evening. My name is Joe Brennan. I'm at 517 Goranson Court. Appreciate you hearing my voice tonight. I want to reiterate that I have a fair amount of concern with the increase in traffic that will occur on McConnell Drive. So as many of us are aware in the community, of course, but also I'm sure others who live in Lyons, many of the folks that have moved to Lyons Valley Park are young families who have young kids. And you know, I already have recognized that with McConnell Drive connecting through to the high school, that I see much higher speeds and more vehicles moving through that area. And now I'm concerned that we're adding 50% more traffic to the plan beyond even adding the expected number of dwellings in that area, and what that would mean to traffic moving through the area where we all have young children. So please request that the board consider the impact of safety in the area regarding traffic and the original plan of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we're going to go and close the public comment. Thank you, everyone, for being here and for sharing your thoughts about what what we're proposing to move forward with. I'm going to ask the board if anyone would object to moving the housing update to the next item and pushing the buyout item to last so we can have some discussion here. I think that there are some things that we can speak to. And we have planned to have a short housing update from the staff tonight. So before we go to the staff, though, I do think that, hearing a lot of the comments, I think there are some things that we do want to clarify. We did talk to this at the last meeting, and I will say that if anyone has come to any meetings over the last 2 years, they will have heard a lot of discussion and intentions stated by this board to make this a priority for the town. This is just because we haven't had a proposal for 2 years doesn't mean we haven't been working toward putting a proposal forward for 2 years. In fact, it's been on our agenda almost every meeting from, I want to say, for the better part of a year, either as part of the negotiations of specific land parcels, which is still ongoing, or as a general update from the staff. So, we're here. We're at a point where we are making some of our intentions public. And at the last meeting, for those of you who weren't here or able to live stream into the last meeting, there was some explanation offered as to why the purchase and sale agreement was proposed and approved at that point in the process, which we recognize is earlier than we normally would do it. We also signed a letter of intent at that meeting. So the one thing that's really important to know is that we are 4+ years post-flood. And the CDBG-RDR funding that we are using for housing expires if we cannot be in a purchase and sale agreement by the end of January. So not having a purchase and sale agreement by the end of January, in essence, loses $4 million. Even the hope of spending $4 million doesn't even mean we're going to get to. So we still may lose that money. We still may lose a portion of that money. But what that purchase and sale agreement did for us in January was kept us in the game so that we have a possibility of looking at a land parcel that is available to see if it's even viable for development. So I think that there is a lot of work to be done before we even know if any units, and if there are units that can be built on that parcel, how many, and of what type. We can't answer those questions at this point because there is a whole lot of due diligence that has to be done. So we recognize that, and there will absolutely be public comment. If we have to have public comment at every meeting associated with an action item or not, we are committed to doing that because we do want this to be successful and something the whole community can feel positively about. So I just wanted to say that just so you are aware that there were good reasons why that purchase and sale agreement needed to be approved when it did. But in no way does it actually get us over the finish line. I think we had a lot of comments to that point. It was an exciting moment for the board to feel like we've made some progress, but it also in no way it comes even close to confirming that the project will move forward. So with that, I want to ask any other trustees if they wanted to speak. I have several items, but I want to give the other trustees a chance first, and we'll try to address maybe some of the comments that are, I think, easy to address in terms of some of maybe the misconceptions that might be out there. Mayor Pro Tem, did you want to start?
Sure. I guess it's somewhat tempting to just try to go through point by point, and I'm not sure that's really how we should be using our time right now. I think it's clear that the public really wants some information. And I also think that it's pretty clear from some of the testimony that there's a lot of details missing from what people understand about what we've been working on and also how we've been doing this. I'd like to reiterate what the mayor said. While we signed a purchase and sale agreement last week, by no means does that actually mean we're obligated to purchase the land. We're going to go through a rigorous due diligence process to decide whether or not this actually is going to work. For example, when I bought my last home here in Lyons, I put down money and I signed an agreement. But then I went through a process to determine whether or not I actually thought that I wanted to buy the house. So I was committed to purchasing the home, but there's inspections, and then you look at financing, and you do all sorts of work to actually make sure you want to close. And that's where we are as a town right now. So we have an agreement so that basically it's ours if we want it. And now we have to go through a process to determine if it actually meets our housing goals. I think to say that all the homes should go out east is problematic, and I'll just address that right up front. There was no vote on Williams. There was no vote on the Eastern Corridor. There was a vote on one project, that was Bone Park, and that was voted down. And a huge bit of feedback that this board got was that people wanted affordable housing, except just not in the park. Many people came up to the board and said this, testified to the board and said this, and told me personally, Dan, I want affordable housing in town, but just not in the park, pick somewhere else. This board was elected to do this. I said this last week and I'll repeat it. This board was elected to do exactly what we're doing right now. Every single person who sits on this board said that affordable housing was a priority for them. Not only that, but 4 of us who currently sit on this board sat on the previous board that supported the Bone Park project, which means the town elected 4 people, re-elected the 4 people who ran on that, even though it lost, and filled out the rest of the board with people who said they were pledged to fix the affordable housing issue in our town. So this should come as no surprise. We also were asked if we would pursue Bone Park again, and I don't remember any, actually, speaking for myself, I said, no, I'm not interested in pursuing Bone Park again. I'll look somewhere else. We've looked somewhere else. So again, to be accused of doing nefarious things behind closed doors, I don't really like it. When you negotiate with a landowner, you don't do it in public. When you buy a house and you sit with your realtor and you decide what you're going to offer the homeowner, do you sit in front of the homeowner and decide your negotiating strategy so they hear your negotiating strategy, or you do it privately? We'd be ripe for criticism if we made our negotiations public when we were trying to decide what was our negotiating strategy. And that criticism would be well warranted. So now, when we are finished with our negotiations and we come out in public, the first chance we had even, during not even a regular meeting. So public input, like the mayor said, is not only more than welcome, it's expected. But I think it's really important that people really know what they're talking about and get facts before they accuse us of doing things that we haven't done. One particular thing I was really, really excited to hear is that people talking about details such as night skies, or hey, this is something we can get behind if it's not too big. For example, it's platted for 43, but they heard plans of there being 100, and that's where you heard that was the overall goal is to replace 100 lost homes, but not in one place, which was also part of the feedback that we got with Bone Park, is that that was too big. People wanted smaller things in multiple places, and that's precisely what we've done. So this decision is based a lot on community feedback that we got over the past 4 years. A huge amount of input went into what this board is deciding to do. It wasn't done in a vacuum. So I'm really glad you're here. I'm really glad you're eager to participate in the democratic process. And I think that what I would really like is if at some point we can get to where staff can maybe address some of the fine-grained things they heard tonight, because I think it would go a long way to help residents understand what our goals are and what our process is. So I'll leave it at that.
And I'm just going to add for clarity, because we are going to have an executive session tonight. It is not about this parcel. It's about other parcels that we are considering. We are the only other negotiations that we should have to address behind closed doors when we get to the purchase price, primarily. But we are not at that point on this parcel this evening. So we are going to be talking about other parcels. But I'll just offer that so we can add clarity to what our executive session is about. So unless the trustees have anything else they want to add, we can turn it over to staff for any updates staff wants to provide.
I guess I could just
Trustee
add
Burke?
just a couple of things. What's mentioned is the increased traffic and impact on the community. But this proposal doesn't change any plans. So you're already going to have all kinds of development. Excuse me. The development's already planned for that area. 43 in the multi-track. So the only difference we're talking about is whether or not it be affordable housing or market rate housing. So you're still going to have the traffic. You're going to still have the congestion. You'll still have the new 2 bridges, so you'll have in and out there better than what we had at the last flood. The other thing is it's already platted, so it's not like a decision that we were talking about the LPPA economic viability of like Apple Valley or South St. Vrain. This was already platted. This was before our time. It's already going to be probably a slightly net, to the town, but there's nothing we can do about it. It's already platted. The developer has the right to develop in there. All we're talking about doing is buying one of those parcels and putting affordable housing on it. We're not talking about replanting.
Thank you.
That's one thing.
All right, Trustee Dreiser?
Just a quick comment. First, I'm always delighted when the room's full. I love it when the room's full. I love it when so many people come up and express their from the heart feelings and thoughts and so forth. It helps. It always helps. I was particularly delighted by the sentiments of working together to make it a really good project. So I just wanted to thank the audience for that.
Thank you. All right, I'll turn it over to staff at this point. We might have more questions later.
I was gonna say, do you want me to respond to any of the comments tonight?
I think any responses you're comfortable and ready to make at this point are fine.
I'll have to go back and identify them. Let me give you the update.
I mean, we can do a more thorough update. We're not intending to try to respond to everything tonight. That's really not the goal, but I also, we have an attentive audience, so I want to take advantage of the opportunity to give you what information we can.
First, I think it'd be really nice if we wanted to hold another work session or something where the people who have been working on this issue, such as Amy and other folks that have served on the Housing Task Force, can share their expertise, and that the potential developers can answer questions as well. Because we have addressed these over the years, but our population has changed. 20% of Lyons is new since January of 2014. So we know that many people in the community are not aware of the situation and the personal stories and our neighbors who lost their homes. There's a new population. So it might be good to hold another work session or 2 or 3 or 4 to help educate people who maybe weren't here after the flood. I'm going to do an update first, I think, just because I was ready for that. The rest I'm going to have to wing here. I do want to note that the RFP did go out on Friday, February 2nd for a request for proposal for developers of this Tract A. It is a very short turnaround. It is a RFP that was drafted in conjunction with the Division of Housing, knowing the timelines to apply for 9% tax credits. 9% tax credits, they issue, or they award usually one project in the state each year to get that. And the Division of Housing would love to see Lyons restore some of its housing that we lost during the flood. And to be able to have this proposal turned in and eligible for 9% credits, this is the timeline. So the RFPs are due back on March 5th. Again, that's all done in public. Public can come for the bid opening, see who responded. We are having a walkthrough pre-construction, pre-bid meeting this Friday at 2 o'clock, and then we'll be walking the site. So if people want to join that or attend that walkabout, you'll have some idea of how much interest there is in the project from developers. Because it is such a short time frame, we've already heard from several that they would have loved to have bid on this, but just simply can't do that. So we need to be aware of that as well. I do want to mention to the board that to stay on schedule with the RFP, we will have to have a special meeting on March 12th to award the bid if you so choose to move forward with one of them. Then the clock starts ticking for due diligence. We would have 45 days for the appraisal, the soil samples, all of those things to happen. That is not done on the town's pocketbook. That is all done by the developer that you select to work with. So I want to make that clear as well. So there's not a cost involved for the town to do that. That developer still would have the opportunity then, if they find out that it's not workable soils, or they can't develop enough units to make it affordable, we could talk about leaving the ridge line between McConnell Drive and that property, those kinds of things. There'll be time at that point then for them to say, this isn't gonna work. So that will be another opportunity to have feedback. And then the tax credit application, the letter of intent to apply for those tax credits is due, I'm trying to remember, I don't know if I'm April 1st?
The letter of intent is May 1st and the application is due June 1st.
And then the application is June 1st. So whoever would do this would be on a very, very short timeline if they want to apply for the 9% credits. Now, there are other rounds of applying for tax credits. There's a 4% tax credit that people can apply for all year long. And so that's another opportunity. But the 9% is kind of the golden egg in the state if you can get that one project. So we'll see.
What is that?
I'm sorry, I'm not going to open it up for questions because I think we could be here all night.
Write down your questions
let
and
staff.
email me if you want.
You can always email the members of the board at any time, any of your questions that you think of.
I can, yeah. And so that's kind of the update on this project for now. It's a quickly moving process, and try to keep everyone informed. We're happy to do whatever the board would like to continue with the education that was proposed tonight by a couple members. The second item I wanted to update the board on was that the IGA, the Division of Housing, has suggested some very, very minor changes that the attorney has reviewed and feels it's within the mayor's.
Well, I'll speak to that. The
Okay.
resolution authorizes the mayor in consultation with the town attorney to make changes to the extent they don't increase materially the obligations of the board. That's pretty standard language that you all see. I've taken a look at those. We can talk offline if you'd like up, and I can review them briefly in session tonight. But I think they're gonna fall within that. It's more, gotta comply with Division of Housing underwriting procedures and these things to comply with their.
I think it'd be better if you just put a memo together for the whole board,
All right.
and then we can decide how to go forward once we see all the detail.
I'll
We
do
don't
that
have to do it today.
So those are
Okay.
the two progress steps since last Monday night when we met. The other thing is that we are putting together another purchase and sale agreement for consideration for the Eastern Corridor. And we are continuing to talk with Tamburello Development Group and Thistle, who is the housing component of that proposal, to see if there's any opportunity for the housing to move forward prior to the commercial development in that area. But again, it's the same situation. This doesn't mean we're selling the property to them. This just allows us to then start working out some more details to see if it's even feasible to have a project. For people that are here tonight, there's a proposal for a more affordable rental units out in the Eastern Corridor. And at this point, it was, I don't get my numbers mixed up, 45 plus or minus a few units of housing out on the Eastern Corridor. So that is another project we are working on actively. And we should see that agreement come in front of the board either at our special meeting on March 12th or, probably not. Kathy's gonna be, yeah, I mean, the 19th.
We gotta get some details.
And then, as the mayor indicated, we are still meeting an executive session on other potential properties. So we are keeping all our options open right now in hopes that we can continue moving forward with several small projects versus one big project. And it changes, and the board is discussing this regularly in open session, and only the items involving actual negotiations are taking place in executive session. So those are my updates, just I was going to give to the board naturally. If you want me to address some of these other issues, I can certainly do that. Would you like to take the time to do that?
I do have a couple questions about the update first.
Okay, good.
If that's all right. So I wonder if it's possible to talk with the state about whether or not, you know, they've offered support in this process, beyond in technical support. My question is some of the soil samples and the appraisal and some of the things that we need to just understand the whole project's viability, and knowing that that's going to be a tight timeline for the developer, is there any way they would pre-fund those studies so that we could do them before we award the developer?
I don't think they would pre-fund it. They would say to us, we can pre-fund that and make it eligible for reimbursement.
Yeah, but just so that we're not having to do it out of our own budget, I mean, if it could come out of that DR funding pot.
I can certainly ask.
I think it would be really worthwhile to ask so that we could get going on these studies as quickly as possible, and that might even help us through the RFP process.
We did bring that up to them, and there was a question about the soil samples brought up already. I did contact Markel and ask them for, and Mr. Bell, and Markel, and another gentleman named Carl Hurst, for the sampling they've done to date. Mr. Markel was very clear to me they did not do a soil sample up there. He said they took a backloader and just dug up a little bit and said that's it. And he could not even identify what spots they did, or he said they tried to unearth in 2 places and they hit rock. And so it is recommended, even by Mr. Markel, that we do formal soil samples of this area, because the topography does change. Now, it does also mean that the development doesn't necessarily have to include basements. It may be above grade. So, again, I think that the cost issue, I don't know if I should talk to you or to you. The cost concerns here, couple things. When you are developing multiple units, there is a cost savings to that. So instead of having one home on one lot, a 1/4 acre lot with a 3,000 square foot home, if I have a 1/4 acre lot with a 3,000 square foot unit, but it serves 3 families, it just changes the calculation there, so, of affordability. But anyway, we will move forward with soil sampling, whether it be us or the developer of choice. Mr. Markel and Mr. Bell. Mr. Bell thinks the soil is very developable on tract A. Mr. Markel did not feel that it was where the single family units are. The 15 through 32 that Mr. Whitman is looking at. So we will wait till you hear about that. In regard to traffic, this development was approved and platted for this many homes. So although I live in this neighborhood too, so I understand the traffic, I understand the concerns, I understand the children that are in the neighborhood, the people who would move into these homes would have those same concerns, I would hope. So we will address those as we can. There was discussions previously about potential of some temporary speed humps that could be put in during the school year, or other methods to potentially slow down traffic. This would probably, we could request the developer to do some form of a traffic analysis to see if there's other alternatives that could be built into the project. Trying to go through the list here. 43 units, that's the maximum that was allowed in the preliminary plat and the SIA philosophy. Mr. Bell, whom I've been communicating with regularly on this, actually said he had always hoped that this would be a development that looked similar to Lions Valley Village. That the homes would look large from the outside, similar to the neighborhood, but they actually have, 3 families in them. And so he would also own the land that Lions Valley Village was on. So that was his vision for this area. It always has been, and it continues to be so. And so I'm just gonna put that out there. He is very supportive of this project and is hopeful that we can move forward, because his goal is to have multifamily housing on this development, or on this tract. Let's see, multifamily. Oh, the South Ledge Ditch. We were very aware that the South Ledge Ditch flooded during September 2013. The whole community did. It was an extraordinary event. The South Ledge Ditch is owned by a group of property owners. The primary owner of that ditch, or primary user of that ditch, is Lucanen Farms. It is their responsibility to maintain and clean out that ditch, so we need to start working better with them to make sure that's happening on a more proactive basis. I also think that we could, through this development process, potentially work with the developer or the Division of Housing to see if there's anything more that they can contribute toward that. Where it flooded, well, it flooded throughout it, but a lot of that isn't where this project would be located. So I think this is more of an issue we need to work with the South Ledge Ditch and the town to make some improvements there. In regard to the bridges, throughout the process of rebuilding McConnell Bridge and the Second Avenue Bridge, we have had to have an emergency access that would only be opened if there was a need to. And so that does exist right now. And both of those bridges are being built to, they're gonna be much larger and higher than what was there previously, so that it can sustain a 100-year flood event. Again, none of our town is built to the 500-year event that we experienced, and would be too costly to do so. So whether or not there are additional people living in this particular neighborhood, we'll face that situation either way. And especially whether it's affordable or not. It will still be that same number of people potentially that would be in that neighborhood that was approved and platted many, many years ago. Let's see, traffic flow. The time to react, I think you've addressed that the best you can right now. Dark skies is a concern throughout the community, and we would want to do whatever we can to keep people safe, yet maintain that dark sky. That's all I can say. I think the Sustainable Futures Commission will be having their eye on that one. Is there any other areas I'm missing other than Mr.?
I have a couple things I might add, just.
Okay, and then the other items that came up that weren't really necessarily pertinent to only this development, but Mr. Perkins, when we talk about the effluent water from the sewer plant, it currently comes out right above the Black Bear Hole, directly next to the wastewater plant. There is a grant in process to move it below the diversion. If that happens, what it does is it actually helps with the flow levels during low season that go that direction. The effluent water is not something to be necessarily concerned about. It's about, our effluent levels are great. They were not cited in our recent permit inspection and any of that. So it just actually adds water to that stretch of the river. And then the whole riverbank issue, that is a bigger issue than probably right here. The St. Vrain Creek Coalition is moving forward with Site 3. You are correct that part of the property is owned by Keith Bell and then part is owned by the town. The town cannot restore their portion until he chooses to restore or not his portion, and that is his personal choice whether or not he can do that, whether or not he does that. So, again, I guess if you have strong feelings about that, you should probably ask the HOA to get behind it and send him a letter or do something to promote that. He has now missed out on this round of funding to do it. It would have been paid for, and he chose not to. So I can tell you the town tried to meet with him and tell him the benefits of being involved with it. He chose not to, and that is his property right, you know, his ownership right. So I would just suggest you get the group behind that and send him some communications. Because we've offered him the materials as well that he could use to restore that, and he chose not to take them. So there must be some other reason why he's not doing that. And then I will let the board address the Labyrinth area. I don't know what your plans are.
Well, the thing is, we haven't talked about doing anything. I think the idea is that it's going to remain intact, and there was no need to disturb it when they did the creek restoration, and there was actually input to the board at the time that people appreciated that area. So we haven't had any conversation since then. That's the last time it came up. I'm going to just ask for quiet for a little bit longer, and then we'll be done with this topic. So I think I appreciate the information. Again, I think we're really, wanting to make an effort to make sure that we are giving you all the information that we can and have at this moment. I think some of the other things that are really important here are being able to apply for the 9% tax credits, because the 9% tax credits are designed to go towards smaller projects. And because you do need scalability to make these projects viable financially, the 9% tax credits are what makes small projects work. So this timeline is being somewhat, we're working around that to some degree with trying to help a project make it to that. Again, we don't know if we'll be successful, but we have to put something forward that we think has a good chance of being successful, and we feel like the Bell property and the Eastern Corridor are the two parcels that we said right now seem to be the most viable and have the opportunity to be successful from the financial planning perspective. Realizing we have a lot of other decisions and questions that need to be answered about the projects themselves, but that comes out of this process. So, we want to give a developer an opportunity to go for those extra funds if they're available, and it really extends our dollars as well toward multiple projects. The other thing I would say is there's no plan at this point to form a committee or anything like that. We're going to go through this process as it's designed to work, and that is do the RFP, get a developer on board, let the developer do their due diligence, and they do a lot of the outreach to the community, and so we really do want to let the experts help us through this. But we do welcome public input at every meeting. There's audience business at every meeting. We'll try to make sure this is on, it's been on our agenda every meeting, but we'll put public comment with it every time if we can. We had room on this agenda to allow for this, and we're really appreciative, like we said, that people have come forward to give us some feedback. But look forward to more agenda items so that we can continue the discussion. I think other than that, hopefully we've been able to answer some of the questions. But we also need to keep moving because we need to know if these parcels are viable. So I would encourage staff to talk with the state if the board kind of agrees generally that we need to do as much work as we can, as quickly as we can, so we have the answers that we need and can move forward with alternatives if we still have time to do so. Is there anything else? Any other trustees? Any other comments or questions? And otherwise, we'll move on to the next agenda item. All right, thank you, everyone. We'll have this on our next agenda most likely. Thank you. Yes, is there a motion to take a 5-minute recess?
Take a 5-minute recess.
Is there a second?
Go ahead. Good, good. You? Good? Yeah. My nose clean. Well, that's a full-time job for some of us. Good, good. How are you? Mr. Trustee? Oh, wait. No. What is wrong, you know?
And now they discuss it. Yeah. So you know how these things work?
No, that's what
So, no, that's why I didn't know. She just has to.
No, I understand that. I'm Jeff Culture.
Green builder. Jeff, I'm over at Noel. She has Mrs.
That's what I heard that. It was like a legendary name, but that's her.
No, I'm just trying to make sure. I'm just making sure. Here, come on over. I'm trying to clear the deck.
What a nerd. It was great to meet you.
Oh, this is my blog.
So you're
I'm so tired. I mean, oh, that's good. Because that whole outer edge, Mr. Wick wants to do is regular. It's just a little, it'll just be the, see what they think they can do. 3 acres. See, I'm only, it's 4 acres. But I'm going to insist they keep the.
I imagine.
Yeah, and so there's room.
You need to.
That's just attractive.
From the board,
Yeah, even in the.
Nobody pulling on my back. Yeah, develop. That was me because there's just that pressure. I'm glad I can add new information when there's an update, like for example, a simple one. No, it will.
Curb cuts that go nowhere. One of them literally goes nowhere right
I want to feel like the other thing I wanted to do,
if you got a Howard Bridge on the left, you're on Howard right, and goes all the way around the big D, and it's right back to the right.
I mean that and your piece of wood.
Well, that's going to be like, I would say it's a small town, maybe ours can be so much harder. You don't have to do it.
You know, but you can drive into it, it's like when they staged, you know,
We need to bridge our big game for that.
while they were working.
We have to our notification.
Dirt, small rocks, but the ledge itself is like thick. If I was looking at the right.
Well, yeah, I've been
It's up behind the house, it's like 4 houses on the side of the street. And,
It's your civic duty now, you know, sit on the commission or the board, sometime in your tenure.
I think so, because if you drive, continue on toward the high school, there's nothing road that literally goes nowhere. It goes across the sidewalk and right into the patch. Pushes.
Well, I mean, I'm
Looks like
looking for website.
it was intended for,
But there's,
you know, a little cul-de-sac will join up with the lower part.
she's gonna try. Planning.
Close to that.
But you know, I almost got up to speed just to say.
Yeah, my wife
Remember about 3-4 years ago, maybe more like 5. 5 or 6 years ago, where they had that lawsuit between the Greens who wanted access and Markel, and then the town got dragged into it. And lost.
Oh, really? This is
That's how the town got dragged into it. And Markel was like, I'm going to do it my land, you pay for it.
And then they often do tax
And he didn't want to do that, so at least that's the way I remember it. Kind of.
Most of them meet once a month, and then, most of them meet once a month.
Good, how are you?
Nice to see you, like arts and humanities, they do this show every.
I knew it.
Every quarter.
I just wanted to say.
my daughter.
I just heard the snow falling. It's all the sort of bushes for sale.
Oh, okay.
So I
bought some Ariel.
My daughter was in high school. Yeah. I don't know if I've seen it.
Yeah,
They were coming, so look at to see if he was here.
Me too.
But they're they're all different.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, I think you're out of luck. Because they're not gonna change it like this. I mean, that's a done meeting. This'll always go
Since Laverne was in Bangors. Right, Laverne?
We don't vote, neither of us.
Speaking of doctors, you said they've been having meetings on Monday night with the Board of Trustees to ride the school to horse. Get along there with me. We gotta go to school. I'm gonna get another car.
I didn't have a place, I had to walk. From our place, the only light was a little light at the corner. It was mine. We went up and down the railroad track. And we didn't have no way. My dad would say, thank you so much for saying what you said. Receptive, really great. Represents what you were saying, but I like to see it around.
Jeff, I'm Jocelyn. So I'm running for position.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm on the
My first election in life.
So you came from Boulder? I want to talk to you about that.
Yeah, we lived in Boulder for 2 years.
Yes.
We were looking for a new house. And
Yeah, I know, because
feel like festivals and
it's like, it's really and then, people from my generation now say it's like, it's the best decision we made besides marrying children.
Right. What falls in line with those
And now you're doing good. So you've been here for a year?
The year in March.
So, well, tell me again when we're meeting Jason? Jeff.
I must be like, I must have been in a former life of Jason.
Yeah. Do you give them one?
Yeah, Terry.
Relaxing.
She was called this.
Get it wrong. I'm trying to tear this up.
Toys R Us.
There we go. All right. Thank you, Jeff.
The guy I gave my card to, how can you be involved? If it's in art, to put it,
but it's up to the board.
Get an interview with.
No, I don't.
Hold on to that.
I don't think that's what you're,
Oh, I went back, I was saying he's gonna be here all day, I went back to right now.
I was 99%.
Dawn, while was excited about this project, but she hasn't. I got to talk to Mary, actually, there's one from Mary and Ursula who was on the
She is
SFC.
opposed.
Is she? I'll talk to her.
But
There are a couple of people that
Keep us awake.
Boy, that's a change in there.
All right, we are back. We have one more item in general business. The item that was number 3 and now number 4 is discussion direction concerning Boulder County buyout properties. We had a presentation and workshop, so I don't think we need to rehash the information. It doesn't sound like they need definitive decisions in terms of which parcel, which, thank God.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how we would have managed that. So just, I guess at this point, is there anything you are looking for definitively, or what, does staff have a recommendation about what we should offer at this point?
My recommendation would be to have a PCDC working group, and the PCDC develop recommendations for the board and present those to the board as soon as they can, at a date to be determined, so that they would examine each one of those parcels that they're asking us to look at, identify those that are of interest, and do more research into the data that we did not have at this point in time. So getting those surveys, identifying the encumbrances, et cetera, on the property, and bringing that to making a formal recommendation to the board for acquisition.
Okay. I'm gonna just ask, I will hear from the whole board. I don't have a problem with that. I guess I would want to put some guardrails on that, because where this is gonna go quickly is people are gonna say, what are you gonna use them for? And that is not what the PCDC's job is, in my opinion. PCDC's job is to give us an objective analysis of, based on the planning area work and potential, and I like the direction that it's going in terms of trying to answer some very broad questions, more or less. But I think if we start getting into, only do it if you can do this, that, or the other, I think that is beyond the scope of what we're really trying to do here. And again, I don't think we can answer those questions easily and without a lot of public input. So I'm in favor of that if the board agrees, but I guess I would want to just be careful that it doesn't spiral into a lot of other discussions that, we're not really prepared to probably respond to at this point.
What about some of the other boards and commissions? I was thinking there were several that might have one to talk about it, especially Park and Rec.
Yeah, Parks and Rec.
I agreed. I mean, I think, is it worth PCDC going first and seeing what their recommendations are and then having the other boards comment from there?
Yeah, I expect that the PCDC would reach out to the other
you
boards.
do? Okay.
Yes. Maybe, of course, Parks and Rec, and potentially the Ecology Board or others.
I would think so.
Yeah, they just asked.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I was wondering about the timetable. What are we thinking? The timetable is for this. Is it something that maybe over the next couple of months, or is it more urgent than that? What's the?
My understanding from Nicole is nothing's urgent or imminent, that we have enough time to deliberate and make our recommendation.
So we could have it on the agenda for the next PCDC meeting, and then, in effect, develop a process from that, and a calendar, and maybe the subgroup, that sort of thing.
That's correct. It is on the agenda for the meeting on the 12th. And we were going to look at how we move forward at this point and develop recommendations to bring back to you, the board.
And those may well include which other boards and commissions may be involved and how they'll be consulted, that sort of thing.
Correct.
Trustee Curry.
The only other thing I would mention, it seemed like there was a consensus on the Martin parcel and with the public too, so I would think we'd wanna, move ahead with that. And, Boulder County is looking for us to do something on that, that maybe we should, make that next step.
I agree. Nicole and I discussed that after the meeting, and we plan to move that process forward.
Okay.
I think, if I recall directly, the letters is supposed to come from the town administrator, but I'm not, we have to figure out that process, so I can't recall exactly, so. But we can make that happen, the
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Just to kind of follow up on that, I had a question about that too. Have we actually sent a communication, I mean, Boulder County is aware that we are interested in the Martin parcel, so.
Yes.
There's no questions on their end about whether or not we're moving forward.
This is our test for both of us. It's not one-sided at all.
Okay. Mayor Preston.
Thanks. Just a few things that my takeaways from our workshop is I agree completely about the Martin parcel that Trustee Kerr is saying. And what occurs to me is that I think we should probably get all the way through the Martin parcel process completely before there's final decisions from the town on what other parcels we might want to go through the same process with. For all we know, the decisions we make could be influenced by how the Martin parcel process goes. So I'd like to get that I think that should get as far down the road as possible. If we get to a total breaking point where a decision has to be made before the Martin parcel is 100% done, I think cross that road when the board comes to it. But I think the plan should be to try to get that one done before agreeing to anything else. I think that was always the idea, and so I'd like to see if we can stick to that. It would be, I think, it also understanding the IGA more in depth with some of the questions that came up during the workshop about it. It's essentially rights and responsibilities of both entities when it comes to these. We talked, I know this came up at the workshop, maintenance. And I know we have some, we were given something by Parks several years ago about the different levels of maintenance on different properties. So we have something there, just bring that back to the forefront. The other thing that came up was the reclamation process and how it's a rigorous process. I think we all get that. But I guess my question for staff is, would you consider that if the properties went through a reclamation process, would you consider that essentially a 100% guarantee that there's no hazards on the property?
No.
Okay. So I think we need to take that into account as we take on ownership of these acquired properties and see if there's some sort of language that can protect the town should something have gotten through the reclamation process. And create some sort of responsibility for that. So because it wasn't the town that went through it. It was a different governmental entity that did it. So if there's a possibility for that, I think that would be a really good way to protect the town down the road. I think this was brought up even as what if we don't know what's totally under there, or we might come up to something that we didn't expect. So it'd be good to protect the town and 20 years, we don't want people saying, why in the heck did they buy this property? Or take on ownership of this property without any sort of legal recourse for knowing that it was reclaimed property.
Anything else?
There's one other item that we're facing on our buyouts and some of our projects, and that's, I probably feel a little less strong about the reclamation than Paul, but because they've had to pass a federal level environmental assessment and clean up and all of that. That doesn't mean something won't pop up, absolutely not. But the bigger issue for me is the re-establishment of the vegetation. What we're facing right now is they'd like to see like 3 years of irrigation on new product, on newly planted vegetation, and no one really knows how to do that. And so that is one area that I would want to address in any of our agreements with them, is are we going to take that on, because they can come and check in 3 years and then regularly thereafter, they expect it to be in a certain level of condition, the buyouts. So we're having trouble with just ours in town, the small lots. So that's an area that I would want to work with them on, to have some form of, even if we acquire it, they'll help us maintain it for those first 3 years. So it doesn't get taken over by noxious weeds, and then we really have a problem on our hands, 10 acres of noxious weeds or something.
I guess I have one comment just to the Mayor Pro Tem's comment about the Martin parcel process. I agree. I think the intention was to understand the process as much as possible. I'm not sure if I would say we should wait until it's complete. I think we should wait until it's known. The complete could take years. And so if we know we want something, I would hate to necessarily not move forward just because we haven't finished one. But I mean, I think my understanding is once it starts, it's probably a lengthy process. Everything with FEMA is. And so, but I think as long as we feel like we know what the process is and that we understand, I think it also sounds like we may need some sort of cooperative agreement with Boulder County in the interim on these parcels. Because I have the same concerns the Mayor Pro Tem has about open space dollars being spent, and what does it really mean to not create open space in our planning area? So I think we're going to probably end up having to clarify and put into writing some sort of temporary arrangement so that we know who is really responsible for these properties and maintaining them in the interim. So I'd like to, I think that's just a dialogue maybe that you could have with the county staff and just say, if somebody does need to start spending money irrigating them, how is that going to happen, and at what point, are they essentially creating? I mean, these are intended to be parks and open space, so they've been created and they are in our planning area. So I don't think it was intentional on the county's part, obviously, but I think we do have to sort it out. I don't think we can just keep kicking the can down the road forever. So I think it's good to bring the discussion back up. I'm glad it came up today. But it sounds like it does require some additional attention to kind of get it, at least get moving on what we think we want. And so we're looking forward to what PCDC comes up with. All right, thank you. We had one item pulled from consent, so I'll turn it over to Trustee Waugh.
So this is the lodging tax ordinance. Before I say anything about it, I'll disclose that my husband is a partner in We Casa Tiny Home Resort, but I don't feel that I don't have any financial gain here, and it doesn't hinder my ability to make decisions. So I just pulled this because I didn't see the ballot language, and I just wanted to know if that's remaining the same.
The revised ballot question?
Yeah.
Oh, that was adopted in another resolution, yeah. And this is just, when you adopted that, the direction was, well, now we got to change the ordinance to reflect the new date of levy, which is January 1, 2019 instead of June 1, 2018.
Okay, yeah, I really just wanted to clarify that. I just wanted to I didn't see any changes to it, but I also didn't see the language, so I just wanted to
For the ballot
make sure that remained the same, because I know there were some questions about that, so
Okay.
that's it.
Does anybody else have any questions? Would you like me to provide you with that offline too, just for?
Oh, no, I mean, as long as it's the same as the original that we passed, I don't need to see it again, I just.
It'll revise.
Except.
Yeah, we'll just clarify, we
Except
passed
for
a
the date,
resolution to
yes.
change the ballot language with a new amount and a new date at the last meeting, after you left.
Not a new.
Oh, at the January 29th
Well, the total
meeting.
amount.
Special meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
Right.
All right.
So, yeah, you
Kept
left
track of who
early.
was here when.
So we did pass that,
I was there
and
for half of it.
yeah,
That was the
so
hard one.
this
Okay,
is
okay.
the second half of that to make the ordinance now match the ballot question. And
Understood.
when I read the draft, it did match the new question.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, I just want to make sure I read the correct version.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I think we're all.
Okay. So we're good?
Yes.
Is there a
We're
motion?
almost all tidied up. Let's go through second reading.
Right.
Okay, it's 10:30, right, ordinance 10:30?
Yes.
I move that we approve ordinance 10:30.
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion? Call for the votes. Passes 7-0. All right, is there a motion to go into executive session, please?
Trustees?
I'll make a motion to.
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
sorry, I heard something from staff, so I was
Yeah.
waiting.
Oh, no, I just wondered if you were skipping trustees and Senate.
He put it, I thought, well, the motion was to make it item number 10.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Make it item number 10, okay.
I move to go into executive session pursuant to CRS sections 24.6, 4024A, 24.6, 4024E, and 24.6, 4024B for the purpose of discussing the possible purchase, acquisition, or transfer of a real or personal property interest, determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators, and for receiving legal advice from attorneys representing the town on specific legal questions, and specifically discussing the possible purchase and acquisition of real property interests, determining related negotiating positions and strategies, and instructing negotiators for the purpose of providing affordable housing within the town and obtaining advice as needed from the town attorney on related legal issues. I further move to reconvene the board meeting at the conclusion of the executive session for the purpose of taking any actions deemed necessary.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, I'll call for the vote. All right, passes 7-0.
And it is not track A.
It is not about track day.
Okay, so, well, yeah, before you get started, I need to get that.
Yes, we'll give you a minute.
Or not to be
You, that photograph this week. Correction. Thursday. You wanted Thursday.
Okay, so that's like last.
Could you see something on the agenda like last time? So was it?
So you, do you live over like that?
This is kind of
Stone Canyon.
Well,
I'm not surprised.
How about if so, you can.
Oh, yeah.
Did you? That's very brave of you to do that.
No, I think, and I'll be holding my breath when they, I get a petition.